Hello. Chirp. Bling bling. Anytime you come to my city, bling bling. How many 90s, 2000s classics can CONQUEST pull out of his hat within seconds?
That's the challenge.
Can I get a what? See, that's the chirp. Yeah, do that. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jason Roberts, aka CONQUEST.
And my name is ARIANNA, aka Ari.
Welcome to your DeProgrammed podcast, because you know it's time for your regularly scheduled
DeProgramming.
Perfect. We can practice that.
We did not. That was so impromptu. I am impressed with us.
Yes. We used to do this on IG Live for the first 2 episodes. We did a third one, which should be out now. Make sure you watch that. That was hilarious.
It really was. It was a
hilarious.
Great time. It was a very, very great time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
You know, more good times to come. But yeah, we're probably going to be doing more of these than the IG Lives. But either way, just make sure you subscribe to your DeProgrammed podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're all mobile devices, computers, cell phones, in the car, everywhere that you could put YouTube on. everywhere, for sure. So listen, we're gonna get right to it, man, because Ari and I actually saw something on YouTube that we really enjoyed, and it actually extends a conversation that we've been having. For those who don't know, this podcast pretty much started from 3 to 4 hour conversations that Ari and I had on the phone. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. That's extremely important since we got a brand new page and we pretty much don't got anybody on it. So we need that to happen, right? And we appreciate every single one of you that come and follow us, subscribe to us, and support us. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Super appreciate it.
Weekly, daily, however long we keep spinning out content for you guys. So it's just editing and post-production, but we're gonna keep these episodes going.
For sure.
Keep them rolling.
For sure. Definitely. So we used to do a lot of these on IG Live. That's how we started. The first 2 episodes were taken from there. Yes. But we did the studio thing for episode 3, which was hilarious. And
it was great. We cannot wait to hear you guys' thoughts and comments on that video.
Crazy.
Amazing episode. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So now we're going to continue the trend. This time in a different location. You know, we might be switching locations up on y'all. You know what I'm saying? With area codes and whatnot. But see, another 90s reference. Yes, you're going to keep these going. That might be the theme today, right?
Yeah. Let's put an account. We're going to put an account for you guys for how many 90s references he does.
90s, 2000s references, music references.
Absolutely. So that's 2. I'm counting 2 right now.
I think it was 3, actually.
Was it really?
Yeah, I started with Jay-Z and Mill. I started with some sort of Cash Money thing, bling bling. I did, yes, bling bling. And now we're at ludicrous area code. So we're at 3, right? Anyway.
3 going on 100.
Listen,
be ready.
Listen, I'm trying to enlighten the people. And speaking of enlightening people, you know, certain people at a certain age don't know what those records are. You know, they just know, Destroy Lonely. They just know NBA Youngboy, and that's fine. But as far as people are concerned, Ludacris is the rapper, or rather the actor from Fast and Furious. He doesn't have a rap career. He just is the tech guy that does all the Fast and Furious episodes, but he has nothing of a rap career. What? He raps? He does that? I thought he was just a guy with the weird boots in the commercial with the water spilling.
No,
I thought that was it.
Sleeping on Luda. Luda is...
Don't sleep on Luda.
Yeah, he's one of the OGs. Yeah, really and truly.
Incredible. But
amazing segue.
Yeah.
So you're trying to enlighten the people. You want to tell them what episode 4's title is?
Ladies and gentlemen, episode 4's title is Spiritual Enlightenment. Right? That's what we're doing. I feel like this episode was gonna come anyway. Glad we got to it in episode 4. So it starts off like this. Now, a little backstory real quick. Our episodes, in fact, this whole podcast was started from 3 to 4 hour conversations that Ari just randomly had with me, talking about everything in the world. And we were having such enlightening conversations. There goes enlightenment again. Such enlightening conversations that we Ari in particular was just like, yo, we need to turn this into a podcast. Let's stop playing games. Let's just turn it into a podcast. Boom. Right? And one of the things that we spoke about has to do with this episode. And it was further cemented by an episode that we witnessed on YouTube called The Deep End. That's the podcast started by Christian hip hop legend at this point, Lecrae, right? Lecrae, Grammy Award winning. I think he's up to like 4 Grammys up to this point. #1 albums, a game changer for the culture, bringing faith and hip hop culture and music together. So he started a podcast, which I thought was a brilliant idea on his part. Had a lot of interesting guests on there so far, interesting topics. But this time around, he had Nick Cannon, the multi-hyphenate Nick Cannon. Can you give us some backstory on Nick Cannon, please? Anything you know?
Nick Cannon definitely had his early career on Nickelodeon. He was a child star, child prodigy. He was on all that. That's where I grew up with him from. And then you have like a couple like mega stars in there. Like Keenan was there. That I believe he does Saturday Night Live now, and he's a director or writer there. Mm-hmm. You have Amanda Bynes. You have Kel, obviously. Mm-hmm. So now from all that, they do Keenan and Kel show.
Right.
Yeah, there's just so many greats there. And then from Nickelodeon, he kind of just went into this artist era where he started doing a lot of great music. Mm-hmm. And from there, he exploded to being a producer, starting his line Incredible. We all know his marriage to Mariah Carey. They did a lot of great work together. Mm-hmm. From what he tells, Mariah was like his financier and investor, which again is great in partnership when you have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ended up being very, very, like you said, multifaceted, multi-talented. Mm-hmm. Successful in multiple industries. So he's successful in music, producing, and everyone, of course, his biggest platform that he ended up producing, and it ran, I think, from 2000 all the way to now, is Wildin' Out.
MTV's Wildin' Out.
Yep. He made it Nick Cannon, so he was able to actually get and buy the idea. Mm-hmm. And in COVID, it had a major resurgence to where the YouTube videos were getting millions upon millions of views. Yeah. And anybody who was trending at the moment was like the guest star, like the guest of the show. And everyone knows him for that platform. But he, if we go back, he helped catapult Cat Williams' career, Affion Crockett. Who else was on there? There's so many great. Kevin Hart's been on there a couple times. So he's really known as like having a platform to springboard a lot of the comedians that are great and successful today. It started with Wildin' Out. And
comedians.
He's just been a really great treasure to the community, for sure.
Yeah, comedians, celebrities, everybody has been through that show.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you would think it would stop there, right? But also, as much as we know Nick Cannon for his incredible accomplishments from America's Got Talent to,
hosting that.
Right, the Wilding Out series he's created and everything else in between. He also has Council Culture. It's a podcast that he has. He has, a multi-hyphenate, right? Mm-hmm. But we also know that he has other multis going on. Like, see what I did there? He has other multis going on. No, that's not a shot. That's just what it is.
Shame.
It was a shot.
Shame.
Not a shot. Was that a Freudian slip? I don't know. But anyway, he has multiple mothers of children. I'll just say that. I hate the baby mama joint. I do. I've never said that out loud publicly. I mean, unless it's affectionate, I just hate that term for some reason. Yeah. It's just weird. It's been bastardized and weaponized. But yeah, he has children with multiple people. And that, I mean, I don't know how to clean that up, ladies and gentlemen. It just is what it is. Like, this guy
He has openly claimed it,
which cleans it up somewhat, right? So that's and I think that's the reason why it's such a talking point, because that's not necessarily conventional standard behavior for a celebrity for the most part that we know of, right? Mm-hmm. We've never heard of a high profile celebrity having multiple kids with multiple people at this height, at this level, right? And so, yeah, it was an interesting enough conversation that it had to be brought up on Lecrae's podcast. And there's a lot there. So before we get to the meat of the matter, because this is only the jump off point, like that conversation with Lecrae on the deep end with Nick was only the jump off point to what we really are about to dive into. So really quickly, let's talk about the episode, right? So, Ari, I'm gonna start with you. What'd you think?
I thought the episode, number one, shout out to both of them.
Yeah.
Being the men that they are, Lecrae being Christian, openly so, but allowing people from different faiths and different religions to come on the show.
Absolutely.
And have an open and vulnerable spot, safe spot, for them to discuss and, you know, go back and forth, even, and then not even holding the debate about it. Nick, also want to give him his kudos because he has been, from what I see it as, or my perspective, he's basically opened up his whole life for people to, you know, dissect, analyze. He'll openly talk about his lifestyle and his faith and how he basically just not even battles, but goes and studies different things. And he'll come back and he allows himself to not only be vulnerable in that aspect, and that you said celebrity status. That's a lot of people that you're giving access to.
He's living out loud, unapologetically.
Yes,
no question about it. Yeah.
So I just want to thank them for even giving us that episode. Lecrae for hosting it.
Yep.
I thought that it was beautiful to see two men talk about their faith. I thought it was beautiful to hear them talk about. Lecrae asked Nick questions about, like, how was it for you? You know, growing up in the spotlight so young. What was celebrity like for you? You actually hoping to be a celebrity to kind of save you from that, the environment you grew up in. Nick,
because a lot of people don't talk that story. They're obsessed with the baby mothers.
Exactly. Right. So, and Nick Cannon went really deep into his Christianity and how he knew every song in the church. He knew the Bible past the Bible verses that the pastors would sit there and have them memorize in Bible study. And he definitely, again, shined a huge light on what his journey was like through his whole celebrity. And he got to a point where he mentioned a couple things that I'm sure we'll dive into. But again, overall, podcast episode was amazing. I watched it several times. And I really just like the trajectory of where Lecrae is going in terms of a host and getting people like Nick Cannon and people from different walks of life on his podcast to just give a different perspective.
What
did you think?
I thought it was amazing. Well, first of all, let me break it down like this. Well, first of all, shout out to Lecrae in the sense that he did a podcast uniquely designed in this way. Calling it The Deep End, it really lives up to the title, because for anybody who's watched most of the episodes, not all the episodes of that podcast, you can tell that he really goes there with certain guests. Like the latest episode, if I remember correctly, I haven't watched it yet, but it's about a couple who started out as same sex, or started off in the original sex, had a gender reversal and then reversed back type thing. And I'm like, half the time I'm thinking, Craig, where are you getting these guests? Like, whoever's
your PR, whoever's your marketing is doing great.
Amazing content, right? But I think that was also important in this sense is that because, you know, Craig has been, as much as he's been celebrated for the music that he's done and the ministry that he's put together between the 116 movement, Reach Records, and his own solo career, he's been also vilified for pretty much those same things, not meeting a certain standard that sometimes audiences, fellow Christians, the church, and everybody else seem to hold him at. So, you know, I love the fact that in this era of Lecrae, that he himself is becoming much more unapologetic and living out loud as the person he is, because I feel like there's a conundrum when you're an artist, and I'm a hip hop artist who's Christian hip hop artist myself. Like, one of the most important things for me is understanding that as an artist, I want to create music that's just not stuck between the four walls of a church. I want to share my music with whoever is interested in listening to it and making music that works in a way that people would want to listen to it. And I feel like Lecrae is the same way. In him doing that, you know, when you're the first to do anything, you're going to have detractors and celebrators literally at the same time. And I knew that that certain times it would throw him off his pivot. There was some insecurities there, and he's spoken about it himself. So doing podcasts like this shows that, hey, not only is he unashamed, as his title or his theme has always been, the unashamed movement. That's what he stands by, what he goes by. But I feel like he's becoming more and more unashamed of the man that he's becoming and developing to be by sharing the content that he's doing. And as far as Nick was concerned, Nick was interesting, boy. I love the fact that he delved deeper into his celebrity career, the trappings that come with it, getting used to the fame, understanding what fame comes with, and all these things, because he gave us a really deep dive on that. And again, I would encourage you to go to the episode. I'll probably drop the link in the chat so you can go watch it yourself. It was great. One thing that struck me though, well, two things. Obviously his spiritual journey, which we'll probably pick apart when we get into the other part of this podcast. But the other thing he spoke on, because we got to talk about the children that he is he's created and serving and co-parenting with these multiple women. He said something to the effect of being a machete juggler, and that one was interesting. So
that's what stuck out to you.
That's one of the things that stuck out to me. Many things stuck out to me, but I don't know if we can break it down all, but that one popped out. I'm outside and along with his spiritual journey. And the reason why it stuck out was because, and I know you can really break this down when I'm done, is the fact that, just to give you context, Lecrae asked him about, the fact that he has all these people, these kids, these multiple women, these family members. How is he handling all of this, considering he has all these other things going on? And I'm paraphrasing, by the way, he likened it to being almost like a machete juggler, in the sense that, I'm juggling all these things, these kids, man, and I'm up for it, man. Throw another one in there if you want, And it was almost like, I get what he's saying in the sense that, hey, I'm up for the responsibilities. That's why I took it on. I'm up for the challenge. Throw more challenges my way. That's pretty much how he lives his life. But I can only imagine, as a parent, we're both parents, right? I can only imagine how difficult that must be to do that in a sustainable fashion from the outside looking in. Because again, we don't know. We don't live with him. We don't really know. But from an outside looking in, theoretical perspective, that's a lot. And also, as we watched and talked about this, we wondered to ourselves, do you even need to juggle everything that you're doing? Career-wise, as a parent, as a partner, because let's not act like he doesn't have some sort of romantic relationships with these women. They're not just like breeders, there's something. There's got to be something, right?
The Most High forbid.
Right. So that those were things that popped out. With me mentioning that, does anything come out for you when I mentioned that?
Yes, the thing that he said right before, after, again, we're doing this off of memory.
Yeah.
So just have grace with us or on us. But he basically lives his life trying to prove to people that he can conquer the challenge.
Do it all.
And it's something that I believe is the backbone of his personality, the backbone of his character. Mm-hmm. So right before he said he was a machete juggler, he basically gets a high, and this is how I interpret it, again, perspective. Mm-hmm. He gets a high off of people telling him he can't.
Right.
Like, you can't be a father of 18 kids, or 19 kids. Like, he lives off of that adrenaline.
Right. Because he's been challenged his whole life, career.
He's been challenged his whole life, told that he couldn't, I'm sure. Right? And again, which one of us has told that we couldn't do something, right? Like that we would just be like, oh, you bet?
A word?
Yeah, word. Say less. Mm-hmm. So where that point connects with me to where it gets a little concerning is that he's talking about children, and he's talking about like having multiple kids, because people are saying like, oh, there's no way you're gonna be able to be a great father. We don't even know how many. Do you know how many?
I think it's 10.
Okay, so let's just say someone.
And they are not living the hard knock life.
Yeah. They're not. That's 4, 5. We're somewhere here. We're somewhere between 4 and 5. There is a concern when you're talking about children like this. And just to tie this back to another podcast, Dr. Bryant was on a podcast with Cam Newton that went kind of viral maybe 3 weeks ago. And she said the same to Cam Newton that I would echo to Nick Cannon. I'm sure Nick Cannon and Dr. Bryant also have a relationship outside of podcasting.
Right.
Maybe that is his therapist. She's from what I've seen, she would be an amazing therapist.
Right.
But she echoed that. I'm going to echo what she said to Cam Newton. There is some absence that is created when you have this many kids. And comparing your kids to machetes comes off a little concerning, because these are whole lives. They're not objects. These are not material that you can just, pass on and be like, well, before I died, I made 18 kids. Like, yeah, you made 18 kids, but those kids are going to make kids and they're going to be in society without you. Like, they're not machetes rust. They get thrown in the dump. They're tools. Kids are not tools, and they're not bragging. They're not here just for you to boast about. So that was the thing that got concerning to me, because he thinks as long as people keep challenging him, saying, well, you can't be a father like this, and you can't be a great father with 5 more kids or 6 more kids. He's thinking he's, what am I trying to say? He feels like he's meeting the challenge. But the con of that is way more than the pro.
Yeah.
You being able to boast that you are a father to 18 kids does not overcompensate for the fact that those kids are in broken homes.
Right. Because you got to think because you got to think about it this way, right? Again, we're both parents, and our journey. You said in the last episode that's one of the hardest jobs in the world. Yeah, it's not the hardest. Yeah, and our journeys are not always perfect.
Yes.
So, and I think a big part of that perfection or striving for perfection is just being accountability based, in the sense of being there for the kids physically, being as in tune to their life cycle as possible, and doing all the things that really work best when the parent is as present as they can physically be, given the situation, whether they live in the home or apart from the home. Those things are not to be played with and not to be just thrown in the air. So I think that was a big concern for us both. But on the flip side of that, an interesting part of the interview, which should beautifully segue into the thing that we really want to talk about. They both spoke on their spiritual journeys. They spoke on the fact that, Lecrae, for example, pretty much grew up in the streets, came to know Jesus for himself around the time he hit college, and hasn't looked back ever since. Now has a son and is currently witnessing his own spiritual journey in front of him unfolding, and the anxiety that comes with that, because as parents, you always want to protect, but people gotta go their own way sometimes, and let that be what it's going to be, and the one we call God, the Creator, is going to take care of the rest. Nick is more of a spiritual journeyman, if that's a good term for that, and because he from what I've seen, and I know you've probably seen it even closer, Nick has delved into different pathways, and they really break that down. Before we get into the other part of this conversation, which, if you're having guests, has to deal with us. If you have a guest, suspense ain't killing you that bad. Right? What did you take from that? The journeys that they both share to each other.
And I'll definitely bounce that back to you. I think that the Most High has a very interesting way of pulling everyone back to him and her. And I think that people can walk, like you said, different paths of life, and we all have to come back and submit, surrender, and acknowledge our Creator. Yeah. Right? And I thought it was interesting because we'll get into your walk with Christianity, but because Lecrae is a Christian rapper and he openly claims Christianity, Nick Cannon spoke on his Christianity and he said how Christianity kind of led him to all these things. And I thought it was very interesting when he said, Lecrae obviously has stayed Christian. He has been saved by Jesus Christ in his testimony. Nick Cannon fell away from Christianity and he felt almost denounced and exiled from Christianity, which put him into the world to where he studied different things, different walks of life. He speaks a lot about, I guess the best word would be secularism. Like he's in different religions. He knows different things. He talks about Egyptology. He talks about a little bit of Buddhism. He'll talk about, he'll quote the Bible like he knows it's like the back of his hand. So it's very interesting to see how Christianity played a role in both their lives, but almost in two different spectrums or two different sides of the spectrum. And I think that goes to show, for me anyway, that it doesn't matter what walk you take in life, we all have to meet back. And eventually we all do, right? So Nick Cannon talks about his Christianity. I don't know if he was just talking that way because he was on a Christian podcast. Right. He actually, afterward, he said in the podcast that he did come back to Christianity. So I'm thinking that's the thing he's claiming now.
Yeah, because he's definitely delved in 5%erism and Muslim faith.
Yes. He wore the turban.
Yes, especially during like one critical thing that happened in his life that almost took away the bag from him, as we say in the streets, in these internet streets, and his businesses, was an infamous interview he had with a former member of Public Enemy during the time, the 2020s, around when COVID was happening and the riots were happening. He had an interview on that podcast with Professor Griff, if I'm not mistaken, formerly Public Enemy, the group that got me into hip hop, actually. And they spoke, and you know, Professor Griff has always been, again, I like to use the word interesting character. And he said some choice things about, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and if I have it wrong, you know, I'll always correct it in the actual post-production. But I think he said some not so choice words against Jewish faith. And that almost had him lose Wilding Out and everything else connected to him. Viacom, they was going at him.
Yes.
They slammed him heavy. And not too long after that, Nick had a Jewish rabbi on the show, kind of like giving a greater perspective of what, you know, Professor Griff had said. So yeah, he's had his journeys, you know. So
a tumultuous one. What they say, the valleys and the valleys in the hills, or the valleys in the mountains. Yeah, he's been through it. He's been through it for sure.
Yeah, he's seen it. He's seen it.
So what did you think in terms of, and we're going to segue again, this is just giving you all just some context to what made us have a deeper conversation. But Nick Cannon talked a lot about, on the podcast, about how Christianity helped shape his faith or shape his walk. You're a Christian. So let's delve into you a little bit. How did Christianity, just walk us through that journey? You being here now at your age and this time of your life, proclaiming it loud.
Copy. Okay, cool. So backstory, for those who don't know, again, Jason Andre Roberts, I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. TNT, right? I'm 49 years old, as of right now. Turning 50 in January. So
Capricorn gang.
So, all right. This is pretty much, I'm going to try and condense this as best as I can without losing critical details. But again, I was born in Trinidad, and I grew up in, I guess you would say, a Roman Catholic household. Because in Trinidad, for those who don't know, Roman Catholicism, Christianity, is the dominating religion or religious faith in Trinidad. So you have Roman Catholicism / Christianity, born again Christian, etc., etc. Then there's Hinduism, then there's Muslim faith, there's other things in between, but those are the dominating ones because the population is mostly Black, African, East Indian, etc., etc., etc. So I grew up in that essentially, but I wasn't of it, right? But I found things that seemed interesting about the faith. I was an avid reader. My parents gave me a lot of books and a lot of materials to delve into. So one of my favorite books, I remember it was a mustard colored book called the Picture Bible, right? And as I tell this story, it just is amazing how God works, in my opinion. The Picture Bible. Now, mind you, I'm not a practicing Christian. I'll break that down later. I'm just, hey, what's your religion? It's no different from like, what color are you? Black, you know? So that's the household I'm in. But I came across this book called The Picture Bible. And it's pretty much a comic animated version of the Bible from Old Testament to New Testament, all the stories. So I'm reading about Adam and Eve. I'm reading about Moses. I'm reading about Pharaoh. I'm reading about Jesus. I'm reading about the great plagues. I'm reading it cover to cover because, you know, I'm reading comic books at the time, so this is perfect. And all the stories and the way it was illustrated was just so fascinating, and it was just so like these really great stories, you know? So at a young kid, and I had to be about 7 or 8 at the time, 9 years old, reading these books cover to cover, and it's informing our consciousness about a higher power, about God and Jesus and all these things. But I just thought they were really great stories. You know, I didn't have a deeper connection with them, but it definitely started to shape my worldview bit by bit based on that and what my parents were showing me at the time, right? Whether directly or indirectly, right? So fast forward, I go to school. Obviously, I go to primary school, secondary school. That's like middle school, high school here. And I go to Rosary Boys RC school, Roman Catholic school. And then I go to St. Mary's College, which was like the top, or is the top college or high school in Trinidad, right? I was able to do enough good grades to be in both places, right? And again, Roman Catholicism was a major part of those schools. We had mass that we went to. We did this thing called religious instructions as part of the subjects that you had to pass. I was acing those. I got 95 to 100s. Like, if it's one thing I'm gonna get an A on is religious instructions, because I knew it cover to cover, right? Math, not so much, but religious instructions, yeah, that's gonna get my grade on. So I'm acing those things, I'm going through it, but there is no relationship. It's like, it's just something I knew. I knew of it. I knew the deal about going to church. My parents had me go to church with them every Sunday. You know, we go to mass for an hour. Cool, I knew it. I believed there was a God. You know, I didn't believe that we just happened here. There was too much evidence in the world to show that there wasn't a God, a high creator. But I didn't have a relationship. There was nothing that was like I didn't talk to God. I didn't do any of those things. I just knew of it, right? What changed for me was when I turned 19 or 18, one of those. And I met this sister, her name was, or is, her name is Peggy Ann Pilgrim. And she was literally the love of my life at the time. She was my first love. Let's put it this way. She was my first love, the first person I was like, wow, I like her, I really like her. You know, I like this girl, you know? And I remember meeting her at a random visit to another school. And I remember the day before I met Peg, I met another girl who was also, they were both of the faith. They were both Christians and both believers in Jesus heavy. I didn't know that at the time. But the one girl I met before Peg, she had this random conversation with me about Christianity and the whole concept of serving Jesus or you go to hell, and it scared the living daylights out of me. It was
but at the same time, you're googly-eyed, you're like...
No, but that was... So here's the thing. I met Peg the day after. Again, another God moment, as I always call. So imagine this. You go to this random school because of a friend. You meet the first girl who gives you this wilding out interpretation of her faith to the point that I literally couldn't sleep that night. I'll never forget this. My mom was like, why are you up? And I couldn't admit to her that I was afraid of going to sleep, not able to wake up in the morning because I was going to go to hell, because the way she broke it down to me was like, yo, you haven't been to, and it scared the living daylights on me. I did not sleep that night. I stayed up the whole night. Then I met Peggy Ann the next day. And I met Peg, fell for her immediately. She's gorgeous. And then I sat down, and then she started sharing that she was a Christian, and I was like, "You again? Not again?" I couldn't sleep the night before. What are we doing?
Like, what are you doing to me?
Like, what's up? What's up?
Yeah,
you know
right.
what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing? Right? But Peg was such, outside of being physically beautiful, just an amazing soul, really cool. Just wanted to be around her, and so I was like, I'll listen to what you're talking about. I just like you though, but I'm gonna hear what you're selling. I just get to be around you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, tell me about Jesus. Whatever. So
that's his game, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
18, 19 years old. He's like, I'm hearing it. I'll be your ear.
I'll be your ear. I'll be your ear. So such a wild child I was. But anyway, yeah. So me being her ear went from a couple of days to 2 years. She and I became best friends. We talked every day on the phone. Every day. Within the first couple of weeks, I made it clear that I want to be with you. I want you to be my girlfriend. Peg vehemently said no. She's like, no. What's wrong with me? What's up? Not in an ego way, but I'm just like, she said it so strongly. And she just said, hey, I need you. Like my faith in who Jesus is and who God is in my life is so strong. I cannot tie myself to someone who doesn't believe the same way, because it wouldn't work. Like, we'll always be butting heads. It's just like, this is serious. It's like, I love Jesus like I love my mom, dad, whatever. I know what he's done for me. He is present in my life. If we don't share that, and especially in a romantic relationship that could potentially turn into marriage, then we off on the wrong foot. And I was like, okay, all right, okay. So I was stunned by it. I was disappointed by it because I wanted her. I wasn't offended by it because, again, she had shown me enough in her personality, a way outside of like her proclaiming her faith, that it was like, okay, she's really cool, but this is personal for her. So for 2 years, we had these conversations. She told, I got to witness Peg live her life out in every aspect of her life. Loss of family, when she was angry, when she had friends disappoint her, when she wasn't her best self, everything. When she needed advice, so when she gave me advice, I saw it all. And I saw how Jesus was tied into those things without her having to shove it down my throat for 2 years. I literally saw it. I saw her character. I saw how God shaped and molded her character for 2 years. And she never pressured me. She never was, I might go through some things and I was just like, hey, you want me to pray for you? Or you want me to, you know what I'm saying? She never, her slamming it down my throat, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, was just her being herself. And after 2 years of seeing that out loud, by the end of that second year, I was just like, hey, Sunday, you think I can go to church with you? And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I think I want to go. And she's like, why? I was just like, I think makes me emotional talking about it. I feel like there's a void here, and I know that I'm not as connected with God as I should be. Not like how you are, not like how I've seen it. And I've talked about God in my life, but I don't know him like you know him. I want to know him. And so I want to begin that journey, and I want to start by going to church with you this coming Sunday. And she was like, yes, cool. So I went, and it was a little weird at first, but I knew I was in the right place. And from there, everything just started to tumble, like very quickly. And I started reading and stuff, and after a few visits, I started having encounters with the Holy Spirit myself. I started really seeing it, because what I didn't want was, and that's why I always say this, is like, I want real relationship with, what I want is a relationship with my Creator, not somebody I get to serve, not somebody I'm supposed to pray to, not somebody who, well, I don't go to church this day, I want a relationship. And what I was beginning to come into understanding of is that I didn't want to serve and be a follower of Christ, a disciple in that sense, because I was afraid of going to hell. I wanted to follow Jesus because I wanted to be with Jesus. That's pretty much it. Like, hell is not, I mean, no one wants to quote unquote burn for eternal life. No one wants to do that. But
or you remember Tom and Jerry, where he used to put Tom into the cauldron?
Yeah.
He'd be like, he used to keep putting him down, and he would be running for his life, and be cooking, and be boiling.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants that.
No, nobody wants to be boiled.
No one wants to be boiled, you know? And but more than that, no one wants to really be away from the Father and everything that He's given. And I started to really understand that through reading scripture again and stuff like that. And then, you know, as time goes by, because I'm fast forwarding a little bit, you know, so I know that there's other faith beliefs there, and I've studied and learned about those things. I mean, considering the country I come from, you know, and everything else, even coming to America, it's expanded that even more, the music I listen to. But, you know, and I know there's conversations in the Bible about false gods and all these things. And, you know, I do believe that there are things that are very much tied into witchcraft and all these other things that just seem deceptively spiritual, but is inherently demonic from just my point of view. But I think about the sacrifice that Jesus did for us as human beings, and just the whole lineage of that. Like, you know what really cracked it open for me? And I mean, I was already like open, but this really cracked it open. There's a movie that was very controversial at one point called The Passion of the Christ. Mel Gibson directed. Yeah, big thing, right? And I remember watching that movie. I've only watched it once in its entirety.
It's one of those movies, It's one of those movies. It's very, very gruesome.
Not only gruesome, well, I think Mel did a very good job of making it as realistic as possible, given the source material that people have, right? Given that was such a long time ago. But I came out of that being very proud to be a believer, and even wanting to be more of it, because I'm just like, yo, I don't know if y'all get this. Like, do you understand what this man, this guy in the form of a man did for us, and why he did it for us? And just the thing, I remember just sobbing watching this thing, and I was just like, oh my gosh. It's like, it really reconnected me in a way, because I think there was a time when I was kind of falling off, and then I was just like, oh, now I'm bugging, you know? I thought I had problems. So that really, it's reestablished my faith. And, you know, in just wrapping this up, it hasn't changed. Like, there's never been a time in the 20-something years, I got saved at 21. So what, we're talking about maybe 28 years or something that I've been, or 27 years I've been a believer. In all that time, I've never wanted to, like, being a Christian is it for me, or being a follower of, whatever term you want to call it, loving Jesus is my Lord and Savior. That's it for me, you know? And again, I just look at the whole aspect of it from what I've read, and the only regret that I have is that I haven't challenged myself to be even closer than I have been. Because I've been close, but I can be closer. And I think that, you know, God willing, there's still time, you know, and especially as an artist too, you know, like, the thing that I truly want to communicate as an artist is multiple things. I'm wrapping it up with this. Like, I just really want to show people what music from somebody who has a personal relationship with Jesus, not just a religion or something I do, can look like and sound like, and how it can affect all aspects of their lives. Like, hey, I was depressed, and this is how God got me through it. He got me through it through my conversations. He got me through it through good friends that he sent to me. This is how God empowers me in my confidence. This is how God empowers me in a relationship. God informs me how I should treat a woman, as opposed to how the world says you should treat a woman. It's just my worldview, because I have a responsibility, because I'm representing him. It's like, say, if random example, say like say if Ari and I were married, right? Like, I'm representing her, she's representing me. You know what I'm saying? And we're supposed to be reflections of each other. That's why Jesus talks about, you know, marriage is representative of, like, you know, the bride of Christ. It's like, that's why they're so linked, because it's the same type of relationship. Sorry if I butchered that, but you get what I'm saying. I'll put it in the comments or in the post-production. But yeah, it is very much that. So I try to make the music that way, and I try to do it in a way where people can listen to my music and know that they have an option to, like, trust Jesus with their lives, you know? And it may not be for everybody, and that's fine, you know? And yeah, I kind of like operate, not kind of, I operate on that belief, you know? And I think it's made me a better person. And I think it's also made me the person that God needs me to be and wants me to be, because I know I'm not just here for the sake of being here. So, yeah, that's it.
That's a beautiful story. Who would have thought it would have came from your 18-year-old, 19-year-old crush, the whole walk?
Yeah, and the signs before that. It's like, and I'm sure there were signs before that and even after that. Hey, I've had reasons to walk away. I had a, you know, quick side note, I had a, and I talk about my music, I had a pastor nearly sexually assault me when I first came here to America. You know, I wasn't getting along with my aunt. I just really wanted to be on my own, but I also wanted to get to know Jesus more. So I found a pastor through mutual friends who I built a kinship with and understanding. Because I just want, like I just said, I just want to grow more in God and find out who God is in my life and what he wants from me, because I want to serve him, you know. Come to find out, he wanted to serve his flesh, and I was almost a victim of it. That could have totally destroyed my relationship with Jesus. I could have been like, yo, really? I'm trying to serve you and you allowed this to happen to me. Nah, forget God. What? And that happened because I wasn't the only victim. There were other people that happened to, and they walked away from the faith completely. And I understand. But I thank God for God's grace, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's a lot to it, man.
So, in that, what made you feel like, wow, everyone else is walking away from this faith because of this man who's supposed to be the representation or the head position of your faith? Mm-hmm. What would you say was your God's message to you to say to stay, or to basically make it through this part of your life and stay committed?
I think it had a lot to do with spiritual maturity, in the sense that the more you know about God, Jesus, and his teachings that's in the Bible, you understand how people are. Because, and we've debated this and talked about this just in our own personal conversation, the goal of being a Christian is not perfection. I think people co-opt it and make it that. Christians are not perfect. We are, you know, and that's the term that we use because it's the American term, because even the word Christian is not even in the Bible, right? But Christians are not perfect. We are in need of a Christ and a Jesus. That's why we're Christian, because we are not perfect. There's nothing, in my opinion, that you can do on this earth that's so good that's going to, you know, guarantee you a place with God, because you can't do it on your own strength. You're a human being. You have frailties. You'll say, hey, man, I'm not going to lie about this. And then 2 seconds later, you lie about it because it's just inherently in our nature. And it's hard to stop. Some do a better job, but not so much with others, right? So I say, to answer your question, in my anger, disappointment, fear, rage, and some good friends, I realized that this pastor was dealing with real demons. And just because you're a person who has a high, lofty title as a Christian, pastor, bishop, elder, Christian hip-hop legend, world-renowned gospel singer, you are not devoid of demons. If anything, you probably have the most demons to face, because demons don't want you to operate in the calling that God has for you. So they're going to send everything to you. Why do I know this? Because it's literally in the Bible. You know, what David had everything. David was a shepherd boy that got ascended to defeating Goliath to now being King David. God gave him everything. You want land? Take it. Take it. I'm giving it to you. You served me. You were obedient. You can have everything. He wanted something he wasn't supposed to have. And that mistake, even though he still lived a great life, that curse translated down to his kids, you know? And I can give mad other examples. Moses, Peter, Paul, you know, everybody, you know? Again, I think that was on purpose because God just wanted to show, listen, all eyes on me. These people here are disciples that are doing my bidding just to show you the way to me. Do not expect perfection from these people. That is a mistake. And I will show you, and I'll show you it multiple times. Even the ones, God said that David was a man after his own heart. His own heart. That's big, right? After, you know, and it's still messed up. That should show you. So when that happened, and in the moment, I probably wasn't thinking that systematically clearly because I was almost assaulted, we'll use that word, but I think deep down, based on my knowledge of God and teachings, that subconsciously something was keeping me centered, like, don't walk away from Jesus because of this. Don't abandon it because there's so much for you to do. Remember, this happened when I was 21. I never made music. I hadn't made music yet. I didn't become Conquest yet. I didn't do all these things that God used me to affect all these people. That could have stopped that day, you know? So, yeah, that's the answer to that question.
That's powerful.
It is. Scary too.
Scary. So let me ask you this one in wrapping up.
Yeah.
What is your goal being a Christian? Like, when you leave this earth, what do you want to say that you accomplished being a Christian or just being in that title?
A goal? I don't know if it's so much a specific goal outside of my goal is to see God and him tell me that you did what I needed you to do. And that
living your purpose.
Yeah, that's it. And that could look like anything. It's like I said before, I just want to grow closer to him. Like, again, it makes no sense to me being an artist that I am, being known for what I do, you know, whether you call me a Christian hip-hop artist or a hip-hop artist who loves Jesus, whatever it is, people know that Jesus is attached to me, right? And people are looking for some sort of spiritual enlightenment from my music. That feels weird to do when I could have a better relationship with him, or I'm devoid of no relationship with him. And it's like, you know, it's like the Bible says, it's like, you know, somebody might say, yo, I spoke of your name. I spoke of you in tongues, and I did all these things. And then Jesus is like, yeah, but I never knew you. That is, if I'm scared of anything, I'm scared of that. I'm scared of that. I'm concerned about that. You know, because again, because of the trappings of fame and doing all these things, like, you know, I love music, I love doing this, but it's just like, yo, I need to know that I'm talking to Jesus, not when my life is in a crapshoot. I need to know that that is a dedication that I want to do. Just like as a kid, when I was reading that picture book, deep down in my spirit, even though I didn't know it yet, I was curious about who God was, even if it was a good story, because I read that book cover to cover multiple times. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know it by scripture reading, but I knew the story. I can tell you, well, Moses parted the Red Sea. Moses saw the burning bush. Moses and Aaron, you know, Moses went somewhere, Aaron had a party, Moses was not pleased. Fam, what are we doing? I know these stories, but I didn't know it as intimately as I could at the time until I got to a certain age. But just knowing Jesus intimately really is the goal. and knowing that when I see him and when he sees me, he can be pleased. I know he's not going to be expecting perfection. No one is, but it's like, hey, that's my guy right here. Jason, my son, come here. You know, that's what I want, you know, and I don't have to necessarily need to do it through music. Music just happens to be a vehicle. And that's why I tell people all the time, hey, you don't have to be a Christian, anything musically to do your thing. But if somebody wants to know, if you have an opportunity to share the gospel with people in any circumstance, not necessarily beat them over the head, but if you have the opportunity to let somebody know that, hey, I know you feel lost and out of sorts and your life is in shambles, but there is a God that loves you. There is a Jesus who died on the cross for you. All you need to do is believe that he is Lord and Savior, and you just submit and watch your life change. That's Matthew 28:19. Go forth and make disciples of all nations. You know what I'm saying? So that is really, that's my goal.
It's a beautiful goal. How do you feel like you're on the track from scale of 1 to 10? How much in your purpose do you think you're living?
In my purpose, I feel like it's currently, I feel like it's going up, because there was a time, as you know, I don't feel like I was really living in my purpose. I was inundated with so many things going on with me personally, but I think I'm at a decent 7 right now. You know, 7. By tomorrow it'll be a good 7.3, and it'll just ascend there, you know. I just need to be reminded of who I was, because there was a time when I was living and I saw myself in a very negative light, given everything that was happening around me at the time, and I felt like a failure. And God doesn't see us like that. At least that's not how God sees me. And you know, God wants better for me. And again, that goes back to me being uniquely connected to him. I feel like if I was as connected to Jesus as I have been in the past, because I've definitely slowed down a little bit, certain things either wouldn't have happened, or if they did happen, I would have been able to deal with it better. So I feel like a lot of this is a reset for me, you know, just like, because going forward, I just want to make sure that I'm living for God at the highest level, not just musically, not just lifestyle or how I appear to people, but just in every facet of my life, because I feel like the next however long I have on this earth is crucial. I think that God is preparing me for something even bigger than I even imagined personally, because I've had goals, but even in recent things, I've shown or recognized that I haven't been dreaming big enough, or I put a cap on certain things, and I need to go for it, but I need my relationship with him to do that at the level that he wants me to do it at, you know, because as a human, I can only do things so far because I only have limited capacity. Meanwhile, I have an unlimited source and I'm not fully tapping. So.
All praises. Wow. Conquest is testimony, ladies and gentlemen. That's amazing. And thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Do you think this will shock any of your fans who has been listening to you so far?
I think it will inform some, educate others, and be a revelation to some other people. But because I'm sure I've shared this in other mediums, but not this way. And I haven't shared my testimony and my journey like this in a long time, like not in this format, conversation type of thing. So. Yeah, it's like that sister who tried to scare me into salvation, right? She's probably thinking, yo, I'm doing the thing that God called me to do, her church called her to do, even the word called her to do. But, you know, people can misinterpret things as well. And she probably thought she was doing a great thing. And, you know, I think vulnerability and transparency is always key, because, and that makes me wonder if people even read their Bibles, because it's just like, if you really read and understood and broke it apart and put it back together again, you know that what you're doing is not what Jesus would want you to do, right? You know that this isn't what he had in mind in terms of bringing people into a closer relationship with him. This is not, because it clearly shows and states here that that's not how he operated. You're probably moving towards Pharisee country than what you're doing right here, you know? So it's things like that, man, you know? So I'm grateful that I at least have that level of foresight, you know, and enlightenment in that way, you know? So, yeah.
Enlightenment being keyword.
So, if you thought it was deep now,
trust me, that's deep. I'm a puddle. I'm a puddle.
Okay, so I'm familiar, but let's pretend like I'm not. Talk to me, Ari.
Okay, so where do I start?
Wherever you think is the beginning.
All right, so my spiritual walk, I remember you said in our first episode, or no, in the trailer to this podcast, that this is not a Christian podcast.
Right, yeah.
You know, I do not associate myself with any religion. I like to say that I am a spiritual believer. I do believe in the Most High, and the Most Highest is how I say it, because I do believe that there is a man and woman up there. And if it's not man and woman, because I believe the Creator is beyond our comprehension, it's at least those two together. Yeah. So that's the way I acknowledge it in my speech. So I'm first generation born here. My family also, we share that in common, from Trinidad and Tobago. So, you know, Catholicism is in our blood. We basically are born into that. And for a long time, I was like an odd child. So I'm not an only child. I have a blood sister, half sister. And we basically had like different upbringings, which is crazy to say that we've been in a household, I think, until we were like she was in high school, I was in middle school. But we definitely had different paths when it comes to spirituality or anything like that. But I find it very funny, and also a life testimony, that people can be in the same house and have different ways that they walk life, or whatever the case may be. So yes, we grew up under a Catholic mom. I have a Catholic dad. And yeah, practiced Catholicism a lot of my earlier years. I think that I started to really start to question some things when the people who were the adults in my life wouldn't live the most Catholic way. And I was just like, okay, so, you know, I mean, you guys say you're Christian, but you're doing this, you know, like the sins that, you know, is in Genesis, like that literally says, don't do this, you guys openly do. So I'm just like, you know, like, okay, so maybe this isn't as deep, or maybe this isn't as, or the path that I might want to be on, because there's a lot of hypocrisy there, right? And from a young age, I never wanted to be a hypocrite. It was one of the words that I learned in middle school that I think she'll remember this story, because my mom knows stuff, remembers stuff like this. But I learned how to spell hypocrite in like 4th grade. I think it was 4th grade, 5th grade. And my mom said something. She's like, don't do this. I was like, oh, Mom, you're such a hypocrite. And she
lost her mind.
And we were leaving out to go to ShopRite. And before she closed the door to the car, she was just like, what'd you just call me? And I was just like, yeah, Mom, I learned in school, it's a hypocrite is when you tell someone to do something but you don't do it. And she's just like, yo, you don't say that. That's not nice. You don't call people a hypocrite. I was like, but that's what it's called. He's like, but that's rude. And I'm just like, all right. So I kept it to myself, but I saw it a lot. And a lot of different religious factions. But again, because we're starting from the beginning, from Christianity, from going to church, I just saw a lot of things that that really struck me as odd when it came to, like, especially like the leaders, like the people who are not supposed to do the things, but they do it openly and almost like without a shame or guilt about it. But I've seen some followers that are more devoted than the people who are leading it, and it used to always have me question certain things. So I think that along with my parents basically taking us to church every Sunday, and then my mom went from Catholic to Baptist, and we started to go every Sunday to Baptist church. Just the same consistency of the hypocrisy, but then teaching people to try to be perfect and to always follow God's commandments and in that, I think that's what led me, I would say astray if I wasn't proud of who I was, but I really felt like that was the beginning of my walk with the Most High. So I think those adults, even in them not knowing what they've done, steered me on a path that I'm as close to the Most Highest now than what I've ever been.
Right.
And I would say that anime had a lot to do with that.
Okay.
I am an anime nerd.
Yeah.
And and I'm also a video game nerd.
Right.
So in my childhood, there's two things I attribute to my walk of faith, right? A game franchise called Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, or Assassin's Creed, and then an anime called Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And that show and that game just gave me such a different worldview that I knew Christianity and baptism didn't even touch. In the sense that Full Metal Alchemist basically explores this kid who believes in science the whole time. They know how to they basically know what the human body is composed of, all the elements down to the trace elements. So the things that you hardly even know is there: sulfur, potassium, sodium, whatever. And they're trying to bring back their spoilers. Sorry for anyone who hasn't watched it. It's a great show. Please do. But spoilers, we'll put the tag to where you can cut ahead. But
I'm getting spoiled right now.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm literally getting it.
This is so pivotal to it. This is so pivotal. I'm sorry, but you still should watch it. Even if it gets spoiled for you, the animation is incredible.
Right.
So it's still a great watch.
Right.
Basically, alchemy is the science of taking one thing, equivalent exchange is what they call it. So if I take this tree and I take the matter and I decompose it down to its elements, I can make something else. But it's equal, but you can make whatever. Right, equal measure, but... Exactly. So law of equivalent exchange is at the root of that. And they lost their mom. They lose their mom. She ends up being sick or something like that. They're doing these studies from their father. That's just like, okay, we have all the trace elements. They bought everything from the store. And then they transmute her. And they try to bring their mother back to life. And she comes out like a monster. Not only does she come out like a monster, Alphonse, there's two brothers. Alphonse completely disappears. He's completely gone. And Edward loses his arm and his leg. So he's bleeding out on the floor. There's this thing called the portal of truth. So in them trying to bring back their mom, they didn't understand that a soul, a human soul, is something you can't quantify. So in bringing back their mom, who they thought was just like elements, there's a soul component there that only the Most High makes. So he sacrificed unknowingly his arm and his leg, and Alphonse sacrificed his whole body to bring back what they thought was a soul, and they didn't even do that. So these are kids, by the way, trying to do this. So in that, they come full circle to the end where they basically learn that they're just human. And there's a part of humility in that. Saying that there is no science that can explain spirituality. There's no science that can say what is the equivalent of a human soul. Like, what is that? We can't measure that here on earth, but we know that the Most High made it. So,
it's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's a great anime. It definitely put me on the path of questioning everything I knew. So whether it be religion, question religion wholeheartedly. Like, okay, like you guys say the Bible, but what about this? Like, there's other books that relate to this. Like, what do you guys think you're different? Do you guys think that, like, you know, where does the branch off start? And basically just getting that human thread. That was the start of me basically trying to tie humanity together. Was that anime. Assassin's Creed got even deeper because they basically went into the study of genetics. And it follows this main character named Desmond, at least the first couple games do, where he goes into this thing called the Animus. And the Animus basically traces through your DNA, traces your ancestral memory. So they believe that you have all the memories of your ancestors in your DNA. And if they can tap into a certain part of the brain, you can actually remember lifetimes ago when you were someone else, your great-great-grandfather, your great-great-grandmother even. So sex and everything doesn't matter in that. They're looking for something, but it also brought into question, like, wow, like, what if that's real? Like, what if the genetic DNA does house your ancestral memory and you can go back in the past, and it brings up the whole thing of reincarnation. Like, do you come back? Does your soul get recycled, and do you just live in a different time? So those two things for me definitely made me question everything. And it made me come out of this box of And the reason being why it brought me out of the box of Christianity is because whenever I would go and ask a Christian about this, I could debate any of them into the ground. Like, I could debate any Christian and make them be like atheists. Like, I just had that thing, but I never wanted to put someone on a path of, I don't necessarily care what God you believe in. I just care that you're a good human being. And I think that, me and you talked about that at length, but those two things right there basically started me, catapulted me. To where I denounced Christianity, not more so denouncing like, oh, it doesn't have its teachings, or it doesn't set people on a path, but I basically came to an understanding and realization that I'm never going to be perfectly in a box that the world might have for me. I'm never going to be perfectly Christian. I'm never going to be perfectly and you know this, so I'll bring some context. I was like 9 different religions throughout my whole life. If I can name them down, I was Christian, I was Hebrew, Israelite, Pan-African Egyptologist was my latest one, atheist, Luciferian, Buddhist, Hinduist, Scientology. Like, I studied and dabbled in Scientology. I think that's 8. And then there might be another one I'm missing. I went on 8, 9 different religions, and it really started to blend to me all of humanity's core principles. What we all strive to be, what we all basically try to figure out in terms of everything. And that's why I say I'm spiritual. I think spiritual is when people ask me religion, that's what I say, because I'm just like, there's no religion that houses me. Like, I can go into any religion and find the cons of it, but what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, if you find God through the language of, and I call them languages, if you find God through the language of Judaism, find it, right? Or find them, find it, find whatever. If you are Christian, then find him through Christ, right? Like, just we all come back to source. Right. So whether you call it source, again, I call it the most high, most highest, because that's how I know man and woman on earth. So that's the only terminology that kind of sums them all together. Universe, source, God, Ahaya, Shor Ahaya is what the Hebrews say, and then they even argue about that. But yeah, I did believe that humanity, and I believe life is very simple, and I believe on earth we make it very complicated. And in all my different religious studies, I've just come to find out, just treat others the way you want to treat yourself. And I think that's the major commandment. I think honoring where you come from is also another major commandment that actually stretches through every religion I've ever taught, and even cultures, because some religions are just faith, but even different cultures too, right? So that is what stored me into being like, hey, listen, I'm a spiritual believer. I do believe in the Most High. I do believe in a creator. I do not believe we just came here out of nowhere. But it also allowed me to be so open to where, if people feel like they need to attack me with their religion or attack me with something, I'm like you said, Pharisee, you're doing more harm to what you think the Most High wants for you, because he doesn't want you to attack anyone. Everyone finds their way the way they're supposed to find their way. He made it so, and I say he, sorry guys, but that's like the deprogramming part of myself. They do it, I believe, to where they do give the different languages, right? They give you different languages, different social studies, economics. So you can find the most highest in every walk of life on earth. And I think that's a testimony to how grand they are. Like, we don't even comprehend how did this woman become atheist, right? How does this woman go from not believing anything to complete submission? And it's like, because and they might not even speak English. We can speak in Botswali or Hindu or whatever, and they're still understanding concepts of God. How? The Bible's written in English, right? So it's just, and then if you go back, it's written in Latin. How many people know Latin anymore to really dissect, okay, the origins of the Bible to now?
In Hebrew and all these things,
There's going to be people, and this is what we always talk about too, but there's going to be people who are in heaven, if you believe that's where, we all end up with the Most High. There's going to be people in heaven that don't even speak English. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like, even in that concept alone, it's just like, dang, so what Bible did they read? You see what I'm saying? What got them here? And when I think of it like that, I'm just like, man, it had to be the way that they were moving. Because they could not have known King James Version. They could have not known the 10 Commandments. So how did they get that? How did they get to heaven, be on the other side of the world, not knowing anything about Catholicism, Christianity, or whatever, growing up in a tribe maybe, right? But still living such a godly life that they still meet us up there with them. So yeah, that was my that's my walk. That's what made me basically come to here. It makes me, I think, accepting of all religions.
Yeah.
But because I've dabbled in so much things, I can sit here and debate with a lot of people who are just like, who use, I think, their faith to attack.
Right.
And it's just like, that I know for a fact is not of God. That, whatever God you believe in, you are not meant to sit here and force people to believe, because how did you find your faith? You found it in such a
unique way.
Yeah, such a unique way, like almost unique to your spirit.
Yeah,
like there's no other walk like yours.
For sure, absolutely. Very unique and organic ways, not something that was didactic in approach, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
No, that was really powerful too. It was very, for lack of a better term, very intellectual. You know, based on experiences, based on other forms of media. It just like all came together to make a lot of sense, you know, as far as just like, well, if this is the case, then this doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
It makes sense. I'm not crazy, y'all.
Right. So I have a question for you. Going back to the early part, because there's a part in what you said that, from my perspective, is an unfortunate thing, because that's not, in my heart of hearts, what it's supposed to be. So correct me if I'm wrong. You know, you came up Catholic and you saw a lot of hypocrisy, right? You saw a lot of things that was happening that didn't add up. And you saw it from mostly the people that were supposed to be the leaders as opposed to the followers, right? And so seeing that made you kind of like be like, you know what, this may not be for me. So would it be fair to say that the hypocrisy that you witnessed pretty much turned you off from not necessarily just any particular faith walk, but just not from a specific faith walk, but just any faith walk, period? Because it felt like these were tenets that people weren't reaching from your standpoint. So therefore, if nobody's reaching them, why do them? And before you answer, I think the thing for me that's and I wonder, and this feels like another podcast brewing, like, how did the quote unquote church culture add to this? Because I've always believed that we weren't perfect. Even as a Christian, it's like, we're not perfect. That's why we're doing this. It's like, if we had it all figured out, if we were all like above board on every aspect of our life, there wouldn't be that. So where did it go where we became so seemingly perfect or set up these tenets where it's just like, oh man, I'm so above reproach. It's like, hey, I'm more godly because whatever. And then so I'm just wondering where that disconnect comes from. But yeah, that's my question. Hopefully I didn't butcher that though. But,
No. I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
There was only one time in my life I turned off my faith completely, and it had nothing to do with the church.
Okay.
I turned my back against God when I lost my grandmother and my great-grandmother in the same year. And that was when I was 16. I didn't even want to do my sweet 16. I was completely over it.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother, my father's mother, I basically call her my matron saint. She is a woman that, dead or alive, I always aspire to be. Virtuous woman in every sense of the word. Like, she lived in the hood of Brooklyn. She lived right off of Nostrand. Was it Park Place? She lived on Park Place with my grandfather, and left her door wide open. Crack vials in the stairwell. Prostitutes, everyone just running about. Just we talking hood. Never a robbery. Always food on the table for someone to eat. Strangers to sleep in her house. That is the inspiration. No matter what book was there for her, no matter what she was praying to, whatever she believed in, I was like, that's the woman that I want to be. And when I felt like God took her from me, and she died in a very tragic way. We ended up suing the nursing center that she was enrolled in, or where she went. But she basically died due to methane poisoning. Yes, she defecated on herself, and they thought she was so smelly that they wouldn't approach her to clean her, and she died through methane poisoning. The feces ate into her back. And for a woman that I idolized so much, I couldn't understand God in that moment. That was when there was just like there's no way. There's no way, like, there's no way you're real. This happen and I went in. But there's no way you're real. Like, I'm spending all this time trying to get close to you. Ain't no way. No way, yeah. Completely denounced him. Atheist route. So completely denounced him. When I tell you my life went to utter crap. Utter complete, because and this is a humbling that, again, I'm closer to the Most High, the Most Highest than I've ever been, and I attribute this part to it because I had to see what it would be like with him not in it, not in it.
What was that like?
It was lonely. It was very lonely. It was a very, you know how I describe it to people? Like, like when you talk out loud to yourself, like they say it's a genius trait now, guys, like they're doing research and stuff. Like when you have so many thoughts in your head that you talk out loud, you have a conversation with yourself.
It's a genius of geniuses that.
Yeah. Actually, Conquest knows, but I encourage it with my kids too. Talk out loud, talk to yourself, converse with yourself, because that's you getting your thoughts out loud. Yeah. And I do believe in manifestation. I do believe in law of attraction. It's like knowing that, having that confidence, and then when they're not in your life, you hear no response. And it's a lonely feeling that no matter how many people are around you, that feeling doesn't leave you. Knowing that you're praying and no one's answering you. It's very, very sad. And it took me to such a dark place that, I really didn't think I was worth it to anybody, Me and my mom fell into some things, got kicked out pregnant. Then I'm homeless for a little while. Then I'm up in New York and I'm going through hell out there. Family still supporting me, family still being there, but such a spiritual hell, right? And then all the while damning them, right? Like all the time going like, well, it is what it is, and da-da-da. And really, really coming to a sense of, and this comes full circle to your question again. No, it was never the church. I understood humans to be humans. It's from such a young age. So hypocrisy to me didn't turn me off the church. Hypocrisy, if anything, made me want to explore what every other hypocrisy was like in every other religion. So there has not been one religion that doesn't have a hypocrisy. There's not one religion that I've studied that you can't say that, oh, God was violent, but then he wanted peace, or humans are imperfect and he wanted to destroy us. Like every religion that I've studied has a very similar story. So that is what church did for me. It actually made me want to go out into the world and be like, man, like, is this a human trait? Like, does everybody share this? Come to find out, we do. There's a lot of us that sit here and we preach better things, but we don't necessarily practice. And I think that the person who does try to practice what they preach are as close to perfection as what we try to get on earth. Where it's like we follow the advice we give, right? But yeah, no, my faith was completely destroyed when I lost my grandmother and great-grandmother. And if I didn't have the anime I told you about, I wouldn't know that sometimes your faith is deconstructed to be reconstructed.
Yes, I can only imagine how that anime in particular, the rebuilding of the mother, the connection, absolutely.
That's the philosophy of alchemy, is you deconstruct yourself to reconstruct yourself. And apparently it's a cycle. So there's been plenty of times where I could have questioned faith. But every time I got rebuilt stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's almost like a tear down that I would allow to come into my life. Like, hey, listen, break me down to rebuild me back up. And every time I was rebuilt, no matter what religion I went into, every time I went into a different religion, I got closer to my God. And I got closer to my truth. Yeah, Christianity as its whole did not do anything to me. If anything, I thank Christianity for setting me on a path, again, because my family was Christian. But my mother also, I've had a mentor from when I was 12 that opened me up to a lot of spiritual, worldly things. I've had my parents being very lax allowed me to explore that, and just holding a trust in me. Like, oh, we know she's going to treat others well. We know that she's not going to put on herself what she wouldn't put on anyone. Just even that basic tenet allowed me to go into the world and be like, wow, like, what is this about? You know?
I have a question. Maybe this is how we wrap this up. So we talked about Lecrae and Nick having an exploratory conversation about their own journey spiritually. We pretty much just mirrored that in a way, in our own way. Last question. Why do we work as friends?
I think we work as friends for the same thing I believe in, to where humanity has a threat. It doesn't matter what your title is. We can all relate to being human. And we can all relate to having human experience. So it doesn't matter if I was an atheist before, which or Luciferian, as my boyfriend basically was like, don't ever tell my parents anymore. And I laugh because I'm just like, don't worry, I already know what that turned people off of. I'm like, oh my God, you believe? I'm like, no, I don't believe in the devil. Oh my God, you worship it? No, I didn't worship the devil. Yeah, I believe that all humanity can come together like me and you are together. To where it's just like, yeah, you're Christian, okay. I'm spiritual, okay. Have I ever damned you for being Christian? No. Have you ever damned me for being spiritual? No. Because we're all human. Our walks of life are something that's unique to us. And I think that once we open up that conversation, we understand that where does the judgment come from? Right? So again, Christianity not being a point of that, of again, obviously Christianity has its, its wars within itself and its battles. But I'll tell a quick story really quickly. So when I was 17, no, I was a little older, 18, 19. In fact, around the same age with you, right? I had this vision. I was working for a CPA at the time. I was starting my bookkeeping career. If you guys don't know, I'm an accountant. But it was when I first started. And I was working at a desk. And this whole time I'm like praying to God, praying to the Most Highest. I have angels that were with me forever, and I'm just thinking out loud, like, questioning things within my body, typing and doing data work or whatever. And I get pulled out my body, completely sucked out, to where I could see myself typing on the computer. I get taken to this. It's not a void because it looks like heaven, basically, like the how people would say heaven is, but like water below, water above, clouds above, and you're on a plane of water, right? And I'm sitting there, just cross-legged, right? And in front of me is a window similar to this window here, but 4 panes, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And in each pane, I see the first-person view of everyone I'm going to meet in my life. Everybody. I see my mom shopping. I see my dad doing security. So he's standing up talking to Ali or Pedro or one of his friends at the time. I see a whole bunch of people. Whether I met them before or I'm going to meet them later, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I'm curious. I'm just like, okay, I'm sitting here. I'm looking at this window. It's floating, by the way, so it's not attached to anything. And there's 2 angels. They're beside me but behind me, so I'm looking this way. I can't see them. One is silent, the other one's talking to me. When I mean talking, I mean telepathically. So he's not opening his mouth. 2 men, 2 males, I would say. And then I'm sitting there perplexed, and this angel asks me 1 question. 2 actually, but the first question he asked me is, are you sure you want to know the truth? And I sit there and I'm just like, yeah, like, of course, you know what I mean? Like, yes, absolutely, right? So I'm very excited. And then he asked me another question. And even thinking about it gets me teary-eyed. He's like, are you willing to lose all of them to know it? And I started bawling immediately. And in my head, all I can think of was, is that the cost to know my God? Is that the cost to know my Creator? Is I would have to detach from everyone I say I love, because as you know, I'm a family woman. Would I have to detach from everybody? I don't remember if I said yes or not to that question. But I do remember when I came back to my body, my shirt was soaked. I prayed to know the Creator so much that I know the cost. And I think what ends up happening is a lot of people on their spiritual journeys, the reason why I actually understand why people turn away from God, they go through their stuff and all that other type of stuff, is because to know the Creator in all its entirety,
This fullness, yeah.
it's a very heavy price. I think Buddhism explores it the best when they say, hey, listen, detach from everything. There is no earthly desire. You have to completely detach yourself from it, which is why they say what the Pope doesn't have. Every head of religion has this common person, right? Can't have a wife, can't have children, can't have to stay in the freaking mosque, temple, whatever, for freaking weeks at a time. Detach yourself from all worldly dirt. It takes such a high cost that a lot of people aren't willing to pay. But that's also okay, because not every follower is the same. Not every follower is meant to sit here and be like, yo, I'm ready to. Then who's going to care for the farm? Who's going to care for the grocery store? Who's going to care for the kids? Who's going to care for the elders? Who's going to care for this, that, and the third? Not everyone's meant to take that sacrifice.
Yeah. Some people are meant to be single, some people are meant to be married. Yeah.
And that sacrifice is what I think makes the leaders.
Right.
When they're willing to sit here and denounce everything all together, to be like, yeah, the Most High is taking me there. Like I said, I don't remember to this day if I said yes or not, but this goes back to your point of, as long as people have a head to me, there's never a thing as being too far gone. So in our conversation or in our connection, I feel like if people just had that bare bones of treat others the way you want to be treated and accept everyone where they are, you're good. You could, who couldn't you talk to? You could sit down and talk to someone so opposite of you. You guys let me know what the opposite life of your life is, right? But you can sit there and talk to anyone who you believe has the opposite life of you, and y'all still share something in common.
Yeah. And with that said, I want to say this real quick. I feel like another reason why I asked that question is because I feel like, to me, it's never been. It's not a competition for me. It's just my encounter with God. It's really what it is, you know. And there may be people out there who share a similar encounter with God that I have. And my job, if you want to call it that, is to share my experience with them. And if they find commonality and something that speaks to them based on my walk and my journey, just like the young lady did with me, then that's what it is, you know. I think that sometimes people try to hedge bets. It's just like, well, I don't want to talk to this person, or I don't want to be around this person because we don't share the same faith walk, whatever. I don't want to do that. And obviously there's parameters to that, but I feel like if your faith in God or your faith in your particular belief journey or your lifestyle is that strong, then it shouldn't be where it's like I can't have a conversation or even a friendship with that person. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, maybe you get to this point, but it shouldn't be that, because it's just like I'm going to cut myself off from this person, because there's things that can be learned on either side. And if it happens where it's just like maybe it makes you reconsider, it's because it was meant to, you know what I'm saying? Or it wasn't meant to, whatever the case may be. But I feel like it shouldn't be like, again, hedging bets, competition.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, it's not that, because listen, and for those who know my genre really well and know some of the main people in it, we've had people, you know, denounce the faith completely. We've seen Fanatic from Cross Movement that happened recently. This guy who used to be like an artist who was a R&B Christian artist, JR, same thing, not too long ago, right? And I think what people should ask outside of the disappointment of why or how they kind of like walked away from that. Because I understand these are artists whose music pretty much informed the way you live and have been soundtracks to the way you live. And some of you are still believing in Jesus still, but then to see somebody like that maybe not feel the same way anymore, I can get why that's disappointing. But I think the question should be,
I think with no quotes, that is disappointing.
Right, yeah. You know, but the question should be why? What happened in their lives? What happened in their journey? Maybe this was part of the journey. Maybe this is what's supposed to happen. You know what I'm saying? And you know, you look at it from that space, or even deeper, or not deeper, but as an aside, you have sometimes maybe there's things that you're doing that could turn people away from a God or a Jesus you hold dear. That almost happened to me, because it could be very much, two things could be true at the same time. Maybe, again, like I said earlier, maybe not everybody's meant to be a quote-unquote Christian. There's so many people in the world, right?
Like, I wouldn't say my denouncing of Christianity made Christianity any less than.
Right.
In fact, me denouncing Christianity made me powerful. So it's just like, I don't want to say that people who, I think religion does this, which again, Conquest knows this, but I do believe that religion was made to be a war. Mm-hmm. I do believe that it basically broke humanity apart. I don't know why we argue it a lot, but I do think that love is a core tenet, and healing is a core tenet. And those are the two things I believe in, which is why my enemies get treated like my friends, always. And they might not believe that, but they might see the podcast and be like, what? And they'd be like, yeah, well, you know, I've been told you that. Right. But it's going back to your point of denouncing. When people denounce a faith, what I feel like religion does is that they'll be like, oh, if you're denouncing, then that's a stigma. Some people denounce a faith and they're better off.
Right.
So it's just when you say like, oh, you know, Christianity, I feel like if Christians are meant to be Christians, like you said, then they'll walk in that faith and they'll be the person that you are, where they hold God to that higher standard, and there's nothing that's deterring them from treating humanity, no matter if you're Christian or not, or Jew or Gentile or whatever, from how God treats all his kids. Because whether we are Christian, Jew, Baptist, Islam, whatever, we are all his children. But yeah, if there's anything in common that we can say between Christians and spiritual people, it would be love thy neighbor, love thy neighbor as you would love yourself, and to grow and to celebrate growth. No judge, don't judge, and always just try to put yourself in other people's shoes. Give each other grace, give each other respect, and also, last but I think certainly not least, accountability. Accountability is a very big part of love. If you see your fellowship, whichever religion or faith you walk, doing something that's not of the Most High, call them out. Call them out. Have grace on them as well, because we've all been there, done that. But definitely let them know the path that they're walking on. I think a lot of our leaders need to be more vocal in that. I think they need to kind of step into their power more in that. But hold people accountable. And again, another human can hold another human accountable. It doesn't matter what walk you're doing. So, yeah. This was a spiritually enlightening episode for sure. This is one of our deeper ones, guys. So, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, hearing our story.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was great. I hope it blessed you. I hope it moved you. I hope it enlightened you in the way that it was supposed to. And yeah, with that said, I'm Jason Andre Roberts, aka Conquest.
And I'm ARIANNA APPARICIO, aka Ari.
And this has been your DeProgrammed podcast. And until next time, get ready for your next scheduled
deprogramming. Later, guys.
Later.
And I'm saved by grace, what the hell awaits. I'm the head, not the tail, let me demonstrate. I don't need effects in my voice.